I was just thinking, there's three experiences that I guess anyone could have. One is our own experience. Basically, you can be any place in the world, a holy place or a wicked place, or and not know it, and just on your own travels, you happen to find yourself there, and you have your own authentic, original experience of the place, irrespective of information, facts, history, perspective, or other people's perspective. The second experience is that of, I guess you'd say, popular facts or history or someone else's perspective. A build-up. This place is so holy because of. This place is, can't you feel it? Or this place is so wicked. So many murders happen here. A year, and such and so forth. And then the third experience is out of emptiness. Is basically being anywhere in the world. Let's even say like in a different plane. Not even on a physical plane on planet Earth. Maybe in a subtle realm, or in a hell, or in a even grosser realm if there is one, a grosser planet, less intelligence, less development. And being in the same place. The difference between being in, say, hell, earth, or heaven, and having the exact same experience of emptiness. Like quietude. And I guess my other thought was, well, I'm not sure how many people can experience the third one, the emptiness. The closest we can think of it is for the average person, let's say, the difference between having that second experience, being on, say, a tour of a historically significant place, and then maybe having to, say, use the washroom. There's a space in between those two occurrences where one is engaged intellectually and maybe even physiologically on a feeling level, and then it switches from where I am, what I'm doing, to what I need to do for my comfort and for the sustainability of my body. That as soon as you switch into that second mode there, it's not where you are anymore. It's irrespective. I need a washroom. I could be in the holiest place in the world or in the shittiest place in the world, and I'm going somewhere. I need to use the toilet. So, yeah. It just occurred to me that basically you can be a few ways in life. One way, you just are, or just operate the way you do. Means you just do what you do, and you know that you're doing the right thing. If you make a mistake, you make a mistake. But for other people, maybe there's a decision on how a person's going to be, on how they're going to be, and they decide and they make conscious decisions. One person, it's boiled down to, this is my instinct. I know it's not worked in the past, and I know it works for me, simply. Where another person, they may operate on a different wavelength, a different way, using choice, if you will, and how they want to be, and maybe from what they've seen from others. But
This is enlightenment. That is enlightenment. Enlightenment isn't, I think, a final state, as you can say. It's really just being. Just however works for you. They say in the Upanishads and Vedanta and even Christianity that it's a state of, well, maybe not so much in Christianity, but they say in Christianity it's a peace that passeth all understanding. It's more or less a moment, which is accurate. And then say in Vedanta or Upanishads they say that it's a constant state, which I don't believe we can say is accurate. Mind you, Vedanta is thousands of years old and there's millions of people following it and hundreds of thousands of them embodying it. But I think the point in case is that there's prescriptions for how to be in life. A person may make decisions, or another person may follow a way. Person A, if you will, versus person B, like what we talked about earlier. So that's basically it. Is that there's almost no enlightenment. It really is just being and what works for you. What works for you will bring you back to a state of rightness, not wrongness, maybe not even up on the up and upness, but just being. And that's in line with what the Buddhists call emptiness. Vedanta, they say it's like a state of bliss, inconceivable until you reach it, and then you're there forever. But we know that through logic and through Vedanta says that Brahman, or that state of just inconceivable bliss, and creation are not separate. Much as, say, I don't know, like air and smoke. The air within the smoke, say you're smoking a cigarette or something, they're just one. It's a mixture. You can't separate them. So if that's true, they also say in Vedanta that it's the removal of the ego, ahamkar, ego, I-ness, the experiencer. So we can deduce that if there is no experiencer, then there actually can be no experience of insurmountable bliss, of inconceivable expansion. It can't be true. I think, though, it's indicative that it makes us reach higher, past, maybe shakes a person out of their patterns and try and imbibe this teaching, if it works for them. But this is why I also like cross-referencing Vedanta or the experience or attainment of enlightenment or self-realization with Buddhism, and they say it's emptiness, which I think is more accurate, because in Vedanta they say that basically it's inconceivable. The state of enlightenment is inconceivable. So if it's inconceivable, I personally, I haven't heard other people use this, but I personally deduce that it's beyond relativity. Now we have something, right? We have something that's beyond creation, which is very much so in line with what Vedanta says and scriptures and authorities on commentaries and works done by accepted and recognized masters. So that's it. And then we boil this back down to like Zen Buddhism. And there's a lot of funny Zen tales about, you know, basically it's I'll just use my own for example, is it's like the Chinese finger torture. Is that if you're trying to go beyond the ego, how can you use the ego to go beyond itself, right? How can the mouth eat the head? How can you eat your own head? So it's like the Chinese finger torture that, you know, you have this contraption, this tube on both index fingers, and you're pulling to get out of it. But when you stop pulling, it can easily be removed, or it ceases to be an issue. It will fall off. And now that's much so like, I think, getting back to what I was saying about type A, type B people, not in modern anthropological or scientific terminology, but just in the two different streams, if you will, that I pointed out before, is that it's essentially that in between your struggles and your joy, there's a space, right? In between experiences, there's an experience of nothing, right? Like we don't remember driving home 400 days ago. We don't remember the 8th bite that we had of a meal 384 days ago. It's lost. And then we get into interesting things here, unless I digress. Like they say there's something called the Akashic records, meaning that essentially nothing that ever happens in creation is lost. Everything is embedded in this memory bank, this web, this film, if you will. That's like, if you think of like if you took 8 pieces of different colored translucent plastic and you folded them on top of one another, or even better yet, if you took a bunch of different liquids and mixed them all in with one another, it's much like that. The different liquids are all there. You just can't see it. You just see probably a black drink because of all different colors or whatever. So it's much the same like that. And that's, you know, that gets back to something that I thought about earlier in my conceptualization of, not conceptualization because I didn't create it, but in my comprehension of enlightenment or Vedanta, was that Brahman is actually right here. Enlightenment, the highest bliss, all intelligence, that potential is right here. Like if you're standing in one spot and then you move to the side, the space that you previously occupied, you know, now you're not there, but that space is there. If you step back, you're occupying that space, but that space is still there. That space is there irrespective of what's there, whether it's air or whether it's your body. So it's much the same. Anyway, that's basically it.
I'd just like to add on to yesterday's tape about basically enlightenment or self-realization, and and just add that to the argument that basically it can't be attained. It really just is the state of just being yourself. Being a self-realized being is really just being yourself and whatever works for you in this world in terms of operation. But it's even said that it's said by one authority on Advaita Vedanta that samadhi, or a state of oneness, if you will, it can't be reached by any karma. It can't be reached by any action. So in the argument of attaining self-realization through Eastern practices of selfless service, hatha yoga, meditating, it's technically debunked through that one statement by that one master, Adi Shankaracharya, who writes in the Viveka Chudamani, his own book on basically self-realization. That's it. Actually, that just brings up one more point. My original thought before that last recording was, essentially, we can't say that there's such thing as a self-realized being, because that would mean that there's a quality there. And that's the state of enlightenment, is to realize oneness, unqualified oneness, qualitylessness. So that, and I really like to, like I said before, cross-reference Eastern practices, some because it really harvests the gold of some more regimented lineages and initiations and lifestyles, monkhood, and cross-references it with, like, I guess, authoritative monks that had a bit more sense of humor, or just taught it in a different way, like a Zen practice. They say, like, basically, like for instance, the Laughing Buddha. I may be stealing someone else's work here, but I think someone once said that that's the significance of the Laughing Buddha, is that once you reach this state of self-realization, or this concept of oneness, all there is to do left is but to laugh, because it was here all along. And I think that it slips away, and that's the art of keeping it, right? Is that sense of humor. And actually, I would even say, I'm gonna maybe digress a little bit, but even the experience of a wide range of emotions, right? So sometimes anger is necessary to keep your integrity, right? Sometimes you have to get angry with people that are trying to take advantage of you, right? And if for maybe some people, so now we see, getting back to the first tape, that what might work for one dude who's learned, or who maybe doesn't experience a lot of people trying to take advantage of him, or maybe it's just I don't want to say nature, because it makes it sound like maybe he's better than, he or she for that matter is better than someone else, or has a quality like an athlete that none of us can attain, due to our lack of regimented development from a very young age, of, say, wherewithal, or endurance, or the understanding of karma, that, oh, this is my karma, this dude, he's insulting, or this person is insulting me because it's my karma. That's I've tried to live that way, and it maybe worked, but not for me today. It's not really how I see it at all. Sometimes, and then okay, so now we're getting to a second point. I didn't think I was going to get into it, but it's because it's pretty. It's kind of it's kind of a hefty concept, but the pair of opposites that, like, we could say one person's an asshole, but at the same time, as soon as we pinpoint that with our mind, that person can change and not become an asshole anymore. Almost like the exhaustion of karma, if you will. So I think that ties in with the point about a self-realized soul, is that other than the use of saying that there is such thing as self-realization, they're not really useful for anything else other than confusing us. Unless, once again, their teachings work for you, have an efficacy in your life. But I think that ties in with belief, right? That if you believe something, then it's true, right? If you believe that something's gonna work for you or is working for you, or will work, right? Like if like I personally, right? I had it in my mind that this person's a self-realized soul, um, and everything they've said for me, literally, like to the best of my own being, to the best of my own character, I've within myself, I've said, yeah, they're right. I can basically anything else that doesn't apply to me, I can pretty well give a stamp of approval, and follow their prescriptions for evolving myself. It worked, I guess, in a sense, but it didn't work. That's the other thing too. Um, that yeah, I don't know. It could be just me. In 2016, September 24th, at 26 years old. My current perception of life, but life just it. There has to be a lot more. I think someone has to be a lot more original to be a quote unquote self-realized soul. I mean, anyone who's listening to this, right? Any being, any average person, if you will. It really is an inside job. It's not okay. Follow this prescription, for the next 20 years somehow, and you're going to reach self-realization or evolve yourself. It may have an efficacy, but in terms of it there's a practicality with what life deals to you. Sometimes you shouldn't still your mind when you should probably deal with some issues, right? Or get some things done. But we get confused when we say no, like I need to be practicing sadhana, spiritual practices, and these mundane tasks have nothing to do with self-realization. I think that's a beginner's pitfall, if you will. Probably something that I've fallen into myself. Maybe not so much avoiding or what do you say? Minimizing, things. But yeah, it just is what it is. So I really guess that if you want to be a self-realized being, it really is just a confidence thing that, well, yeah, or not, a bit of confidence in maybe some circumstances, but really just a fact of logic that really the only thing that we can say is constant is emptiness. So so now we get into other things like getting back to the other point I was making about a pair of opposites, that like, you know, that actually, before I get into that, you know, the game of life, I guess, is basically to either um, tell you you're wrong and convince you of that for doing what you were going to do naturally, innocently, if nothing else, you know, not even maybe, you know, just doing you, just being you, and saying no, that's wrong. don't don't do that. You know, that's saying that confusion, right? That's the trick, right? That's what I was talking about before, about not losing self-realization. Like, you can lose it in a moment and gain it back in another moment, like the Chinese finger torture. You know, life telling you you're wrong about something that maybe you're just doing or just being, the next right thing for you is like jamming, is like the Chinese finger torture, being on one index finger and then jamming it onto yours, and so there's a jamming, so you've gotten trapped. So the instant the way, instead of sometimes, you know, you maybe fight it and say, you know, think to yourself, you know, what is this? Right? But other times, if I think the state of self-realization is just to not fight, right? Within reason. Your own intuition will tell you which path to go, right? At any given moment. And that not fighting then allows you to slip out of the Chinese finger torture, as opposed to, and then that's it too, right? It's like, I think even a self-realized being experiences error, where maybe you fight, and you get stuck, or you don't fight and you get stuck, and you rather you fought when you shouldn't have, and you didn't fight when you should have. And then that's just like a second trap, if you will. And then basically it's just the recognition that, oh, okay, I made a mistake, and then it's usually done after that. And that's basically it. Is for the rest of your human being, your human life. I was going to get into another point. There is basically everything I'm talking about is basically pertinent to human being, the human experience, right? I don't know about anything else. I'm just talking about a human being, and I think that's it, right? It's just like a plant that grows and dies, just like a human being who lives and dies. That's basically it. From my experience. So another point I was going to get into, or wanted to talk about, is like is even the quality of goodness, right? Like sometimes something fits the bill. You get an urge or an instinct, if you will. Say I want to listen to a certain song. It does it for me at that moment. But you could listen to that song at another time and it be wrong. It could be like off key for your life, right? Like almost like energetic medicine, if you will, or energetic blending. It's a discordant note, like playing maybe Van Halen while you're sleeping, right? Or you know, like death metal at a you know, a somber, you know, sad, mournful funeral, for instance. It's just you know, they just clash, but my point was, I wanted to bring up an experience that, like, like I once digested the entire audio works of a philosopher, of a man, if you will, of a person, Alan Watts. 40 hours, or more. I listened to everything, and it was just so good. It wasn't because he was good or everything that he was doing was good. I don't know. It was just good. It fit a bill. It was good. It added to my own views of self-realization, if you will, or enlightenment, or my current situation, which wasn't very good at the time, if you will, my current life circumstance. It was refreshing, if you will, and gave me a lifeline back to my own self-confidence and what I know, and my own affirmation in my own experience. Basically, just like the Chinese finger torture, the contraption. It aided in letting me loosen some of the binds, the binds that were tying me. But then again, the experience I wanted to share was that I went back to listen to it a year and a half later, and what I found was just some guy stumbling over his words, and it was very soft hitting. It wasn't hitting any bills. It wasn't hitting any nails on the head for me at the time, or it wasn't. It wasn't paying. It wasn't hitting any bills. So I guess that's the experience. Like, even of say my own recording here, is that for one person in a certain circumstance, what I'm saying can be on the range of moronic. What's the other word? Incompetent, to maybe just not disagreeable, but just not for that person, or just not hitting any nails on the head for that person, and all the way to the other side of completely life changing and brilliant and encouraging, like how I found Alan's work to be for me at that particular time. Say back in when was it? 2014, let's say 2014, September, August time. So yeah, that's all I wanted to translate on this recording. Just ashed a cigarette on me. One more thing. So the other quality, I guess, what I was saying about basically the game of life, if you will, in terms of on an individual level, being that, telling you that you're wrong for being you. And self-realization being basically the ability to stay grounded or stay centered, or, stay in that idea that I'm just being. And, not to say sometimes we can make a mistake, and, but I think there's a level of, what do you call, just self-awareness. We know when we make a mistake. We know when we did something and it had a negative effect or something like that. And, self-correction, right? We don't need life to tell us we're wrong. We should be able to know that for ourselves, through our own intuition, our own conscience, if you will. But the other side I didn't talk about was, the bolstering. Sometimes life, people per se, gain power, if you will, in our lives by encouraging us. Or let's just say life. Let's not even say people. Let's like saying, "Oh, you did a good thing." Well, I just did it. And that's the other trap. That's the other way to get stuck in the Chinese contraption, the metaphorical Chinese contraption of losing self-realization at a moment, is allowing that to allowing that to change us as well, and say, oh, I am good. I am good. You know. And now, once again, I want to tie it all back. Not tie it all back, but bring it back and say, sometimes that is good as well. Sometimes we have to accept that, due to fatigue, if you will. We're tired at the end of our day, and we just need to get back to get back to our own space, if you will, if you're that type of person, I suppose. And you've had enough of the world for a day. Sometimes it's like a loosening of a bolt. It was tight at the beginning of the day, tight throughout the day, starting to loosen a little throughout by the evening time, if you will. And I'll just quickly say that I don't believe that's not self-realization to have that experience. I think, and now this could be good, this could be big, is if we look at the life of a self-realized soul, or masters, or these people with high attainment, Tibetan monks who meditate days and days straight without eating, without moving, they too do not get to choose what they do whenever they want. It's much like being warm in the winter without clothing, or seeing at night. There's an ebb and a flow, and a moment of opportunity, or a moment of opening, where they get to practice certain things, right? Or do certain things. They still have to say, they still have to, deal with bodily things, do have a shower and take care of themselves, and they probably plan there, I'm going to do this now, and then this I'm going to do after, and I'll have an opportunity to meditate for such and so forth. And I think that's it, is that it really, it really is just doing, no, I don't want to say doing what you want, but yeah, like just doing what feels right, doing the next right thing, the next innocently right thing. If you want to listen to a song, or if you want to go for, if you want to do something, if you want to create something. I don't believe, in the regimented sense of self-realization, where you're desireless and basically just an unchangeable state of oneness of, why would I want to create something? There's nothing to be created. True, but also in a practical living sense, not true. Because all these masters, they did have an imprint. They didn't just fucking lie down in some cave for the world and remain unseen by the world. They all left an imprint. People saw them, saw what they did, saw their expression, their expression of who they were. Some wanted to meditate. Many masters wrote tons of poems. Current self-realized souls are all about their missions in life, running monasteries and teaching practices on people on how to become peaceful or such. So you see, I have to stop recording for a moment. I'm about to be interrupted. I think that hit. Yeah. Stop for a moment. Yeah, anyway. So let's say, the difference between a person making themselves a cup of tea versus, say, Adi Shankaracharya writing, the Dakshinamurti Stotram, or, the Atma Satakam, Nirvana Satakam, these beautiful, timeless, literally imperfectionless poems on self-realization or this oneness, they're really no different. They are, let's say, like Adi Shankaracharya was no more pure writing those than someone making themselves a cup of tea innocently. In fact, actually, we can say that at the same time, they're no different, though we can say Adi Shankaracharya, these poems are pure, much as we can say, a little lamp versus the sun are different in brightness and in effect. But in reality, in terms of the individual experience, there is no difference, because they were just the expression at the time. Much as that person who makes a cup of tea may go on to, I don't know, impart some sort of knowledge or experience, or take part in an experience and say their child's life or their offspring's life, that memory is held within that individual, that offspring, for the rest of their life, that same day. Much as the same day that Adi Shankaracharya wrote these beautiful poems, Dakshinamurti Stotram and Nirvana Satakam, that same day he made himself a cup of tea or drank a cup of water, a comparatively almost much less grander action or accomplishment or expression, or if you will. So that's basically it. I'm confident to say personally that I'm personally very happy with myself. I'm just an individual currently at Arunachala, Tiruvannamalai, Tamil Nadu, India, planet Earth, Northern Hemisphere. I'm not a part of society per se. I don't have an organization. I'm not intertwined in these matters. I don't have a say per se. I'm not known per se. But I don't view it, or in reality, through logic and through these. I don't even say arguments, because they're not arguments. It's pure logic, irrefutable logic. I would argue, if you will, that my being is no less is no different than someone who is doing something great at the moment, or if you will, or even per se someone who's making a mistake, innocently, not purposefully. And I think that's self-realization. It's not the impact. It's not becoming something. It's not becoming more impactful, more powerful. It's working with what you have. And now I'm going to tie this into, this is something I wanted to say quite a few recordings ago, but I got crossed between a few directions I could have taken the conversation. Was in Jnana Yoga, the path of attaining enlightenment through basically logic, through wisdom. It is said, in fact, that the fastest way to burn all your karma and burn all the impurities of the mind is through the reflection, vichar, or there's another word for it, and it's not coming to me. Is through the reflection on everything that has essentially been said throughout all these recordings to now. Is that essentially oneness is, emptiness is, world is not. and now everything else that I've tied in or said through these recordings has been just basically the practical experience of how to maintain that or how to be that, and or debunking any confusion around what that looks like on a moment-to-moment basis. And basically saying how it can be different for other people, or how they can function and still be that. Basically, I'm just saying it for all different types of people. This is not just for a certain type of person, for people who may be like me, identify with me. Excuse me. I think I got it. Okay, we'll stop there. So I guess what I'll also say is, adding on to the last point is that, or not last point, but essentially there are experiences in life that a human being, let's say, can experience, and religion, or let's say the science of self-realization as prescribed by yogis, if you will, or let's say hatha yoga. You can have extremely supernatural experiences through practicing meditation or practicing hatha yoga, or the yamas, niyamas, asanas, pranayama, pratyahara, dharana, dhyanam, and samadhi. You can have experience, but technically it's not self-realization because there's an experiencer. So basically, from my little point in the world, my little spot where I am right now, I'm talking to the greatest thing that can be experienced, the experience of the entire cosmos. I'm not saying that it can't be had. I'm just saying in terms of self-realization, that's not self-realization. So, and in fact, the quickest way to experience that, as I was saying before, through jnana yoga, is through the renunciation of trying to experience that, and basically the self-acceptance or being situated within one's own being and how they are, and how I am, how you are. And essentially letting that run its course, in a sense. And whatever you feel you need to express or do, if you want to follow a spiritual master, or if you want to practice spiritual practices and attain these things, there's nothing wrong with it. But in terms of the final goal, they're separate. They're not one and the same. And I guess that's it. Funny enough, is that along the path, maybe many people did follow, hatha yoga, Raja yoga for that, the 8 limbs there, the 8 steps to culminating in samadhi on the 8th. Excuse me. Maybe I wouldn't doubt that someone, let's say, almost I don't want to say grace, because then that means we're lacking grace if we can't do it. But maybe that was the path that their life took. I'm just saying that's like the path of being like a particular musician. It can't be replicated. We can't replicate other people's lives. The moments, each moment that I don't want to get into duality here, but let's say sculpted them, or changed them, made them write the songs that they wrote, or perform the way they did, or had the impact on the world that they did. We can be influenced by them, inspired by them, but ultimately our own goal rests in our own originality, if you will. Unless we can say in duality that on the other end, say Elvis impersonators, if you will, they. There's probably great Elvis impersonators, and that's what they want to do. They want to, or on another level, there are people who just want to be like a certain person, and maybe are successful at that. I haven't really seen any, but I'm sure it exists. I think that's it. Oh wait, no, there was another point. So basically, I think that's it, is that on the path to self-realization, we exhaust the desire for self-realization and then attain self-realization. There's one thing I don't want to say because it's still pertinent in my life and still working through it, is basically how I've come to this was perhaps through extremely terrible things that have happened to me in the course of the last few years that maybe have switched or shifted my direction, if you will, to basically what I've recorded throughout all these tapes. But on the other hand, what I can say is what I just said, not just now but before, is that's in line with many stories, many tales about how taught by a current world teacher who's given many discourses to thousands of people across India and the world, and that basically, yeah, I can relate a few. One, there was a person who was kind of mentally handicapped, and a spiritual master initiated him into a mantra and gave him a duty, a karma yoga, told him to clean a temple and repeat his mantra. And the guy did it for 20 years, cleaned the temple every day, but he forgot to repeat the mantra. But the master came one day and snuck up behind him and without this individual noticing, and whispered in his ear, have you been repeating your mantra? And at that instant, just due to the following of the spiritual master or whatever, that's what was said about the teaching, he attained enlightenment. So what he did, he didn't follow it perfectly, but through, I guess, is the dedication. Basically, that's what I'm saying. Despite imperfections, the self was attained. There's another one where basically a master came by to people practicing spiritual practices, trying to reach enlightenment, and basically one guy who was really kind of not aggressive but gung-ho about self-realization said, how many more lifetimes do I have to before I attain realization? Because I'm doing all these practices. It's all day, every day I'm doing these practices. And basically the master said, well, look at the leaves on that tree over there. However many leaves there are on that tree, that's how many lives you have to go. And the guy flipped out. He just couldn't believe it. He said, I can't believe it. I'm trying, and I'm not getting there. And then the other guy that was practicing with him was a bit more, I don't know, just happy-go-lucky, if you will. Said, well, what about me? And then the spiritual master said that, well, look at that tree over there. however many leaves are on that tree, or how many lives you have to go. And the guy was thrilled. He said, the individual was thrilled. He said, oh my God, I'm actually going to attain it. I'm actually going to reach self-realization. And at that moment, he reached self-realization because of just his innocence or joy, at the thought of attaining it. And so that you see, it comes back to that Chinese finger torture thing. So, and there's a couple more stories, but the point of what I'm saying is it's factual. But I guess the other point is that self-realization and experiences are two different things. One can be self-realized without experiencing, spiritual experiences. Like, one may think, well, I need to be able to do this to be self-realized, or I need to have experienced this, this spiritual experience. I need to be able to be kind to everyone and not be affected by anyone, and just be this completely neutral, positive thing in creation. No negative, whatever. But we see, as I've said throughout all these tapes, that can't be. There can't be this is self-realization and that is not. In terms of a constant for someone's life. And I guess the other thing I want to say is that in terms of maintaining self-realization, one should be detached from experiences, like for instance, attaining fame of being a spiritual teacher, let's say, or of actually experiencing, power, like walking down the street and people recognizing a person's spiritual attainment. One should not strive for that, or think that think they need to maintain something to be self-realized. I think that's it. Is just being that really almost unintelligent, literally like just happened, like almost like Led Zeppelin just happened. Being like that, being able to be so awesome, but not willfully trying to maintain that. Being able to be that and be detached when you are that, or when you do something great or awesome or something like that. Being able to be that, but almost letting that happen, being detached from that happening, saying, yeah, basically. And I think that's it. Almost like these experiences, like higher, subtler experiences, let them come, let them happen, almost. Even if they, what's the word? Grace, Lance.
even if they like basically like rub across your skin in a sense, if they don't come into you, don't even reach for them. And I think that's it, right? Is like for me, I've recognized people who have been able to maintain or been maintained just as a course of their own life on the path of yoga, and maybe experience subtler things, higher things than I've experienced. There really is no difference. But it's much as just a natural expression. I'll still say have respect for it, or look. What's the word? Just praisingly upon people like that, or so there's an efficacy to things in life. Emptiness is the truth, but on a reality basis, being self-realized and still growing, let's say, or changing, or having growing in influence, or growing in experiences, or growing in the talents or ability or knowledge is still possible. Or is still a real thing. I'm going to stop there for a moment. So basically what I'm saying is, like, in scriptures they talk about that in fact everything I just said is kind of untrue. It's not untrue. It's proven experience, my own. But technically, like, they say that, like, the original description of self-realization that I followed is the one that has been described as perfect. That essentially you stop experiencing duality in total, and you do have this experience of just oneness for the rest of eternity, and your body drops off and all that stuff. Like Swami Shivananda says that essentially, like, you should be able to have an avatar on every single planet in the in all of creation. A real self-realized soul can do that. So, like, that's basically what I'm saying, is like it's much like being that athlete, if you will. As I was saying in a previous recording, a self-realized soul should be able to also, if a self-realized soul can do that, a self-realized soul should also be able to slam dunk a basketball, or perform acrobatics at an Olympic level, which is not true. It's just not true. No self-realized soul has been recorded doing that, per se. So, but also, like, there's probably on a different level, it is true, like, on an idealistic level, not even idealistic in a terminological level, but on a reality level, but in idealistic self-realization, yeah, it is probably true. You should have that ability. you should see the whole entire cosmos. You should be able to enter this state of basically witnessing witnessship witnessship of the entire creation. I'm not sure. So for me, my interest was never to have the experience of the entire cosmos or anything like that. Like, basically, I just, through logic, deduced that self-realization was the goal, and that was it. Yeah.